Louder on the count of three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Good job. All right, it is time for praise. So I'm going to invite our praise team to come up. Even if you're not part of praise team, you can go ahead and stand up. And we want to worship God together. So go ahead and stand up. Stand up.
Darkness run and hide. You bring the broken back to life. Only you can, only you can. You set me free from every chain. You fill my heart with songs of praise. Only you can, only you can. Jesus, you're the only reason that I'm even breathing. I am wide awake. My heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to hold me. My soul sings, Father, you are holy. My feet dance to your rhythm.
All right, our word up. Faith is believing without seeing evidence. Good job. It is time for our memory verse. And I know for the last couple of weeks, our memory verses have been super long. This one is a little bit easier, so you can take a deep breath and be like, okay, it's not as bad, not as long as our other memory verses. Now, I said our theme for today is faith, yes. So our word up has to do with faith, and our memory verse also has to do with faith. Our memory verse comes from the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1, and this is what it says. It says, faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. So Hebrews 11:1. So let's go ahead and read that all together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. And if you need help with the number for the memory verse, remember they're all ones today. So 11:1. All right. Let's try it again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. All right. I need to choose some volunteers to help out with our points for today. Also, I had... hold on to your hands. 1 sec. I also had a request for our Team A and Team B to be able to name themselves this week. So if you have a name that you want for your team that is appropriate, no bad words, all right, then we can go ahead and go. All right, let's see somebody who wants to help for Team A. Team A. All right, Matthew, I see your hand raised. Do you want to be my point person for today? Okay. All right, so go ahead and get the pen. And then Team A, what name do you guys want to go with? What name do you want to go with? What do you think? What name are we going with? We're going with Uwu? Uwu. Okay. Okay. All right. We're going with Team Uwu, I guess, for Team A. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, quiet down. Quiet down. All right. I guess we have a lot of internet watchers, a lot of anime people on Team A. All right. Team B. Nope. This is your name. Your team name. Team B. Be careful of the awesome responsibility of naming your team. Team B, who would like to be our point person for today? Our point person for today. You want to be our point person for today? All right, awesome. All right, and I need a name for Team B. Oh, okay, all the way in the way. Team B. Team what? All right. We have Team Uwu and Team We Are Better Than Team Uwu, which is going to be really embarrassing if you lose a Team Uwu after saying that you're better than Team Uwu. All right, so we have Team Uwu and Team We Are Better Than Team Uwu. All right. All right, quiet down. All right, let's practice our memory verse again. I'm going to cover up only one of the words this time. All right, and this is our key word. Team better than Uwu. Boys, quiet down. Let's be respectful of other people. We can tease each other, but we want to be nice to people. All right, so on the count of 3, our memory verse. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. All right, next one. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. All right, one more time with even more words covered. On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. All right, I'm covering up even more words on the count of three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hebrews 11:1. All right, that one was a little bit rough. Let's try it again on the count of three. I'm not going to help you guys on this time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Not seen. Hebrews 11:1. All right, one more time with all the words shown on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. All right, if you think that you have memorized our memory verse and that you can recite it without any help, go ahead and raise your hand. I'm going to start with team We Are Better Than Uwu because this team thinks that they're better than Uwu. All right, can you go ahead and say our memory verse?
Now faith is the assurance.
All right, quiet down.
Now faith is the assurance of things seen, for the convictions of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1.
All right, good job. Let's give 100 points to team We Are Better Than Uwu. All right, Uwu, it is now your chance to prove that they are not better than you. So who thinks we can do our memory verse? All right, right over here. All right, on the count of, whenever you're ready.
Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1.
That was with authority, so let's give 100 points to Team Uwu. That was very well done. All right, Team Better Than Uwu. All right, you want to try it? Yep. Alice?
Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1.
All right, good job. Let's give another 100 points to Team Better Than Uwu. And the OG Uwu team, let's see. All right, you want to do it?
Now the insurance of things not hoped for, the conviction of things not seen.
Hebrews
11.
All right, good job. Let's give 100 points to Team Uwu, OG Uwu. All right, let's see. Who else from Team Better Than Uwu? More Uwu than Uwu, all the way out in the very back.
Now faith is the insurance of
Boys.
Now faith is the insurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen.
Hebrews 11:1.
Good job. All right, 100 points for Team Better Than Uwu. I was kind of surprised that you guys didn't want to be Team Mountain, but that's okay. All right, Team Uwu. Do we have anybody else that wants to do it? Yeah, I'll do it. Yep, Christian.
Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1.
All right, let's give another 100 points to Team Uwu. That 100 points for Team Uwu, so 300 to 300. All right, anybody else from Team? All right, we can do one or two more. All right, you want to try it? All right, Team Better Than Uwu.
Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1.
Good job. All right, another 100 points for Team Better Than Uwu. All right, OG Uwu. You guys want to? One more? The OG team?
Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1.
All right, good job. Another 100 points for Team Uwu. OG Uwu. 100 points, yep. You should have 400 points each. All right, that's pretty good. A lot of you guys were able to get our memory verse. All right, all together. On the count of three, one last time. Yeah, Matthew, your team has 400 points. All right, we good. Because I was calling it OG Uwu because they're saying that they're better than Uwu. Uwu 2.0. All right. It's gotta be Team Uwu, OG Uwu. All right. One last time on the count of three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. All right, good job. One more time. Today's word up. Oh, good job. Faith is believing without seeing evidence. Now, we've been asking a big picture question, and we've been asking this question. This is the 4th week. This is the last week for our big picture question. How can we be saved? And remember, our theme today is faith. So I want to make sure that you have faith in your answer. How can we be saved? How can we be saved? Having faith in God is good, but I'm looking for a specific name. Who do we have faith in? Who do we have faith in? Through faith in Jesus. There we go. We can only be saved through faith in Jesus. Good job. All right, our word up. All right, you guys are doing awesome, both teams. It is time for our Bible video. Yes, it is.
In the book of Hebrews, we find a list of people who lived by faith. What is faith? Faith is being sure that what we hope for will actually happen. Faith is obeying God because we trust Him. By faith, we believe that God created everything from nothing, just by speaking.
Many people in the Bible had faith, and this pleased God. Abel had faith when he gave an offering to God, and God accepted his offering. We must have faith in order to please God, because by faith we believe that He exists and that He rewards those who trust in Him.
Noah had faith too. He obeyed God by building an ark to rescue his family. Noah warned other people too, because he trusted that God was telling the truth when He said a flood was coming. God was pleased with Noah.
Abraham had faith when God called him to leave his home. Abraham did not know where he was going, but he obeyed God. God made promises to Abraham, and Abraham believed that God was going to keep His promises.
Abraham's wife Sarah had faith. She trusted God to give her a family even though she was too old to have children. Sarah was 90 and Abraham was 100 when they had their son Isaac. Abraham and Sarah went on to have many descendants. God gave them a family as numerous as the stars in the sky.
Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and Moses all had faith. Rahab had faith when she hid the Israelite spies in Jericho. King David had faith too. All of these people trusted God, and so did many others.
Having faith was not easy. Many of these faithful people suffered, and they all died before God's greatest promise, the arrival of Jesus, came true. But they believed that God had a wonderful plan. God was pleased with them because they trusted Him.
We know today that God's plan came true. He kept His promise to send the Messiah, His own Son, Jesus, to rescue people from sin.
The Bible gives examples of people who had faith, but the true hero of the Bible is Jesus. Jesus lived a perfect life, died on the cross, and rose from the dead. We are saved from our sins by faith in Jesus.
All right, today we're going to be looking at the book of Hebrews, and we're going to be looking at faith. And we want to remember that we are saved by faith in Jesus. Now, I want to start with an example, right? How many of you are sports fans? Anybody like sport? All right, if you would like to share, if you want to keep your hand up, you can share. What is your favorite sport, and what is your favorite team to watch of those sports? I see a lot of the Team Uwu people are sports fans. All right, Sean, what is your favorite team and favorite sport? Oh, I don't know that team. Where are they from? Oh, very cool. I'm not as familiar with soccer. That's really cool. All right, favorite sport and favorite team. Oh, that's a popular one. Unfortunately, they didn't go all the way in the playoffs this year. It was a really hard series. Is what? I don't know that team. Where are they from? England? Okay. I'm not familiar with soccer. I'm not a big soccer fan, unfortunately. Favorite sport and team? Manchester City? Okay, I know that one. All right, sport and team. Oh. Oh, that's cool. Our favorite sport and team. Is what? Oh, flag football? My grandparents used to be the biggest 49ers fan, and so like they would have the entire family going over to watch 49ers game. Well, for me, one last one. Favorite sport and team. Oh. Uh-huh. One of the sports that I love watching is I love watching hockey. Any hockey fans? A couple hockey fans? I inherited that by watching hockey with my mom. So my mom and I used to watch hockey together, and then my dad and mom and I used to watch hockey together as well. And my favorite team are the San Jose Sharks, our local heroes. Yeah. Now, sadly, right now, the San Jose Sharks are not the greatest team right now. They're kind of in a spot where they're not very good. But a while ago, they used to make the playoffs almost every single year. They used to be consistently really good. Not the best, but a very, very good team. Now, after years and years and years of watching the San Jose Sharks, and maybe you can think about this while watching your favorite team, you can tell when your team, your favorite team, when they have faith in themselves, when they believe in themselves, because they play a certain way when they believe in themselves, right? And they play a different way when they don't believe in themselves. Oftentimes, my mom would like to say that the Sharks, whenever they didn't have faith in themselves, she would like to say that they're playing scared, that they're playing not to lose the game instead of playing to try to win the game. Now, an example of this is a few years back. I'm going to share a hockey story with you guys. A few years back, the Sharks were against the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs. Now, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, they're a very, very good team, a very skilled team. They're a very physical team, and I hate them. Right? I don't hate the individual players. They're very skilled players. But, as one sports fan to hate rival teams, I don't like the Las Vegas Golden Knights. This series was a very tough series, the best of 7 series, so the first team to win 4 games, and it went all the way to Game 7, right? Winner take all, last game of the series, San Jose Sharks versus the Golden Knights. Now, for almost the entirety of the Game 7, it seemed like the Golden Knights were the better team. The Sharks felt like they didn't have confidence in themselves, they didn't believe in themselves, and with only 10 minutes left in the game, the Las Vegas Knights were up 3-0 against the San Jose Sharks in the score. Now, I don't know if you know much about hockey, but a 3-0 lead is basically the game is over, right? It's very, very hard to come back from a 3-0 lead, right? Maybe if you're lucky, you can come back from a 2-0 lead, but 3-0 lead, that's a huge lead. And then, to make matters worse, about 10 minutes left in the game, one of the Las Vegas Golden Knights players hit the captain of our team from behind, and he didn't see it coming, and so he landed headfirst on the ice, and they had to help him off the ice because he was done. He couldn't play anymore. And so because of this, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, they were given a 5-minute major penalty. Now, how many of you know the rules of hockey? Anybody know the rules of hockey? Let me explain the rules of hockey. Normally, what happens if your team gets a penalty, it's a 2-minute penalty. And what happens is one of your players has to sit in the penalty box, so the other team has one more player on the ice than you do, so they have a better chance to score. On a normal penalty, if a team scores 1 goal, then the penalty is over, right? So if it takes 5 seconds for you to score a goal, penalty is over even though it was a 2-minute penalty, and then both teams are back to even number of players. Now, a major penalty is something that happens very rare when a situation when somebody does something like really, really, really bad, and usually it causes the person to get kicked out of the game because it was so bad. In this situation, the Golden Knights were issued a major penalty. It was a 5-minute penalty instead of a 2-minute penalty, and the other team in a major penalty, if they score, they still are on the. They still have a man advantage until all 5 minutes are up. The penalty doesn't end, right? It's a big punishment for a team if they do something really, really bad. So because of this major penalty, the Sharks were given a chance to come back and get the game. Now, has it happened before where a team scores a bunch of goals on a 5-minute power play? Not really. It never happens. A very slim chance. Question? Because the person hit one of our players from behind and caused him to get injured really badly. That's why. Yeah. So with the beginning of the penalty, with 6 seconds into the penalty, right? So there's almost the entire time left, the Sharks scored a goal, right? It became 3-1. And I remember watching this on the TV and I was like, yes, that's what you get, right? You heard our captain, that's what you get, right? I was starting to get energized about this. And I think the team started to believe in themselves. Because less than a minute later, they scored again, 2-3, right? And you can see that the crowd was getting louder and louder, and they started to believe, okay, we have almost 4 minutes left. We can tie the game, right? About a minute later, the Sharks scored a third time on the same power play, right? Now it came to, okay, not only are we tied, but we believe that we can win this game. And again, the Sharks scored to take the lead. They scored 4 goals in about 4 minutes of time on a 5-minute power play to overcome an almost insurmountable deficit to take the lead in the game. And the Sharks players and fans went from completely defeated to believing and having faith that they could win the game and win the series. And that's exactly what happened. It actually ended up going to overtime, and the Sharks won the game and won the series in one of the greatest comebacks that had ever happened in hockey. Now, you're probably asking me, why am I telling you this story other than the fact that I am a big hockey fan and I love telling hockey stories to people? Well, today we're learning about faith. And faith is having confidence in something that you do not see. For the Sharks, it was faith that even though they were in a game that seemed like it was unwinnable, they had faith that they could come back and they could win the game and win the series. For Christians, faith is believing in our God, even if we can't see him with our own eyes, and believing that God's promises are true. Quick question? What if I've never seen that happen before. Because they freeze it and it's hard rubber. I've never seen it broken before. Question? All right. Who hurt the other player? Yeah, he got kicked out for the game. Because it's a punishment for their team for doing something bad. Yeah. I think it probably was an accident. I don't think anybody really tries to deliberately hurt somebody else. But yeah, but still, I mean, even if you do something in an accident that's really bad, you sometimes gets punished. It's consequences, right? All right. So today, our Bible story comes from the book of Hebrews as we look at faith. And so we need to look at a bit of background on the book of Hebrews. Now, normally when we look at a book in the Bible, I'll tell you, okay, this is who wrote the book, this is who they wrote the book to, this is why they wrote the book, to help us understand a little bit better about each of the books of the Bible. Now, Hebrews is a little bit weird, and this might sound a little bit strange, but we actually don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews, right? We don't know who wrote this book, which is a letter that was written to Jewish Christians in the early church. Now, some Bible scholars think that maybe Luke could have written the book of Hebrews, but they're not sure. Other people think maybe Apollos, who was a leader in the early church, he could have written the book of Hebrews. Some people think maybe Barnabas, who was a missionary with Paul, he might have been the author of Hebrews, but nobody knows for certain who wrote the book of Hebrews, which is kind of weird. Right? But we do know why the book of Hebrews was written and who it was written to. And so the author of the book of Hebrews wrote to Jewish Christians, and we know this because it has many references to the Old Testament that Jewish readers would have been familiar with. Now, the main theme for the book of Hebrews is that Jesus is better, or Jesus is superior, right? The author of Hebrews wanted Jewish Christians to know that trusting in Jesus, having faith in Jesus, is better than having faith in anything else. So he talks about how trusting Jesus is better than trusting in angels. That Jesus is better than prophets like Moses, who many Jewish people revered because he helped give the law from God to the people, right? That Jesus is better, that Jesus is superior. Now, the reason that the author wrote the book of Hebrews is because during the time when he was alive, it was very, very difficult to be a Christian. And so he wrote to encourage them to continue to follow Jesus because following Jesus is better. Right? During that time, many Christian leaders were being thrown in prison for telling people about Jesus. Many Christians were being persecuted or even beaten up because they believed in Jesus. In fact, under the Roman Empire, who kind of ruled over much of the land at this time, it was actually illegal to be a follower of Jesus. It was against the law to be a Christian. The Roman Emperor Nero, he persecuted Christians and had them killed because of their faith. And so it might have been a scary time, and Jewish Christians might have been thinking, okay, maybe I should stop believing in Jesus because it's scary. And so the author of Hebrews wanted everybody to know that Jesus was worth following, and that following Jesus is better than anything else, right? Jesus is better than anything else. So now that we know what's going on with the book of Hebrews and what was going on in the world, we're going to talk about Hebrews chapter 11. And Hebrews chapter 11 talks about faith. And in order for us to talk about faith, we need to know the answer to this question. What is faith? Can somebody tell me, what is faith? What is faith? When you believe in something? Okay, that's good. What else? What is faith? Anybody want to add on? It's kind of a hard question. What is faith? What is faith? Okay, faith is believing in something when it's hard to believe. Okay, what is faith? Okay, something that you can't see or something that hasn't happened yet that you believe will happen. Okay, good. Well, here is the definition from the book of Hebrews, and this was kind of based on a memory verse, right? Faith is confidence in what we hope for, so something that hasn't happened yet, an assurance about something that we do not see. So trusting in something that we do not see. I don't know what that is. Little fuzz? All right, so faith is confidence in what we hope for, something that hasn't happened yet, and assurance about something that we do not see. So basically it means trusting something even though we don't have 100% proof that that's going to happen. And I'm going to give you a simple example, because you can have faith in a person, right? Like our example with the Sharks, you can have faith in a team. You can have faith in an object. In fact, you can even put your faith or your trust in the wrong things. Many times in the Bible, right, people would worship idols and God would tell them that their faith was misplaced in something that wasn't alive, right? And so let me give you a small example. I'm going to use this chair as an example. Now, how many of you, when you come in to the church and you come and you sit down in your chair, how many of you believe that this chair is going to hold you when you sit down in the chair? A lot of you, right? And you believe that even though I'm not currently sitting on the chair, I have faith, I believe that this chair will hold me if I sit down in the chair, right? And I have faith in this chair, not because I have 100% evidence that I'm definitely going to hold me, but because of my past experience with it, right? Every single time I sit down in a chair, it has held me and has not exploded, and so I believe, I trust that this chair will hold me when I sit down in it, right? Now, imagine that you go to sit down in a chair, and you go to sit down in the chair, and as you sit down in the chair implodes, just absolutely shatters into a million pieces, and you fall down onto your butt on the ground, and you get hurt, right? Next time you sit down in the chair, are you just going to sit down on the chair like that, or are you going to kind of ease down softly on it just because you're not sure, right? Because of your past experience, if the chair breaks, you might not have trust in that particular chair, or even if you sit down in another chair, you might be cautious about sitting down in the chair. Now, imagine if every single day that you sit down in a chair, the chair explodes under you and you fall to the ground, right? Will you ever want to sit down in a chair if that keeps happening over and over and over and over again? No, right? You'd lose your faith that this chair is able to do its job and to hold you. Now, even though we don't have evidence, 100% scientific proof that we can test in a lab that God exists and that God is trustworthy, right? We see in the Bible over and over and over again, right, that God keeps his promises. Just like that chair, we see that over and over again, it helps us sit down. Over and over again, we see that God keeps his promises and that we can have faith or trust in who God is. Now, the Bible tells us that without faith, it is impossible to please God, because we need faith in order to believe that God exists and also to trust that God will reward us and keep his promises when we seek him and believe and trust in him. Now, the Bible is filled with many examples of ordinary people like you and me who showed faith in God through their actions. We don't have time to go through the entire Bible today. In fact, I think if I do, some of you will just die of boredom because it's going to be such a long time all in one sitting and you'll lose your attention span. But we're going to talk very briefly about several people in the Bible. Sometimes we call them heroes of faith. I don't always like that word because I think Jesus is the main hero of the Bible, right? But some people who, because of their faith, we look up to, right? And let's take a look at some of their examples of people who had faith in God. The first one we're going to look at is Abel. Abel had faith in God, which is why he gave God his very best. Abel believed that God was worthy of his very best offering, and so Abel gave an offering better than his brother Cain when he gave an offering to God. And because of his faith, Abel's offering was accepted by God, and Cain's offer was rejected by God. Do you guys remember that story at the very beginning of the Bible with Cain and Abel? A little while later, Noah showed faith in God. God warned Noah that it was going to flood, even though there was no rain in the sky, even though Noah lived somewhere that wasn't like next to the ocean or next to a lake, right? Noah built an ark, even though he didn't see evidence of an upcoming flood because he trusted God's word. And because Noah had faith in God, God rescued Noah and his family when the flood came. Abraham is commended many times in the Bible because of his faith, and we're going to look at 3 examples of when Abraham had faith in God. The first time was when God came to Abraham and said, Abraham, I want you to leave your home, leave your family, and go to this land far away that I am going to give your descendants in the future. Abraham believed God and obeyed God and lived in a foreign land with strangers and different people that he didn't know. And he believed God's promise that his family would receive the promised land, even though it wouldn't happen until long after Abraham had died. Abraham still trusted and believed God and had hope in God's promise, right? Even though he hadn't seen God's promise fulfilled with his own eyes. That's the first one. The second one is that Abraham believed God when God told him that he would have a son, even though he and Sarah were very old in age. They were too old to have kids, but Abraham, even though they had to wait many, many years for God's promise to come true, Abraham and Sarah continued to have faith and believe in God. Later, after Isaac was born, Abraham still showed faith in God. When God told Abraham, I want you to go and sacrifice your son, Abraham knew that God's promises would come true through Isaac, and Abraham had faith that even if Isaac died, God could have resurrected him from the dead, and so he took Isaac to be sacrificed. And at the last minute, we know that God said, don't sacrifice your son, right? It was a test of Abraham's faith. And Abraham trusted God because he had faith and he believed that God's promises would come true no matter what happened. A little while later, Moses was sent to rescue the Israelites, and Moses had faith too. In fact, even before Moses was born, Moses' parents had faith in God because during that time it was against the law to have a son that was born, and any baby boy would be killed by the Egyptians. And so Moses, his parents, kept him hidden as a baby for a long time and then let him go down the river to be found by Pharaoh's daughter. And even though Moses could have grown up as a prince of Egypt with all the money and power that would come with, Moses had faith in God, and instead he chose to be mistreated alongside of God's people so that he could be used by God to rescue God's people. Out of faith, Moses told the Israelites to keep the first Passover, right? So that when the angel of death flew over and killed the firstborn sons, that God's people would be protected from the plagues. With faith, Moses led the Israelites across the sea when God parted the waters, and when the Egyptians followed, they were destroyed. Moses showed faith in God. The last example is a smaller example, but Rahab, who was a woman who lived in the city of Jericho, she had faith in God, even though she wasn't part of God's people. She lived in this town of Jericho, and then God's people came to go scout it out, and they sent spies into the town because it was part of the promised land, and they told her that God had promised them this land to live in, and Rahab had faith in God over the idols that her people worshipped. And so Rahab hid the spies and helped them, and as a reward for her faith, Rahab and her family were spared when the city of Jericho was destroyed. Having faith in God isn't always easy. Many people in the Bible suffered because of their faith. Think of the things that Moses had to give up, right? He could have lived as a prince. Or Rahab, her entire city was destroyed, but she had faith in God, right? Because of their faith, right, they were rewarded by God. But every single one of these people that we looked at today, all of them died before they saw God's greatest promise fulfilled. God sent Jesus to the earth to rescue us from sin. And even though they never saw God's plan completed, each of these people believed in God, and God was pleased with them because of their faith. This brings us to our Christ connection for today. The Bible gives us many examples of people who had faith, but when we look at everything that happened, the true hero of the Bible is Jesus. Jesus lived a perfect life. He died on the cross, and he rose from the dead. And we are saved from our sins only by faith in Jesus, in trusting Jesus. Let's pray. Let's go and put our hands together. Bow our heads, close our eyes. Let's pray. God, today we looked at many people who had faith in you and who you were pleased with because of their faith. We looked at Abel and his sacrifice. We looked at Noah. We looked at Abraham. We looked at Moses. We looked at Rahab. And we see that many ordinary people were able to experience your greatness because of their faith and their trust in you. We know, God, that with our eyes we don't always see you. With our minds we don't always understand what plans you have for us in our lives. But we pray that we would have faith in you based on the evidence of the past and how you've been faithful, based on who you are and your power. Help us to have faith in you and put our trust in you instead of other things. We pray this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. All right. It is time for our questions from kids. Yeah, question from kids.
Hi there, I'm Pastor Kevin. It's time for questions from kids. Oliver from Houston, Texas asks,
I don't feel like I have a lot of faith. Sometimes I doubt God and his promises. Is this wrong?
Well, Oliver, that is a really common question. And everybody doubts at times. But yes, it is wrong for us not to trust God and for us not to put our faith in him. Like the reason why going to church like Sundays and sometimes even during the middle of the week is important for us is so that our faith can be strengthened. Right there in Romans chapter 1, Paul says that he longs to be with the church in Rome and the people in Rome so that they could mutually encourage and strengthen one another's faith. They're even people in the Bible. You read this in Mark chapter 9, verse 24, where the man says, hey, Jesus, I believe, but would you strengthen my unbelief? And guess what? Christ, in a moment, strengthens the man's unbelief. In Luke chapter 17, verse 5, Christ reminds us that we only need to have faith the size of a mustard seed, a little bitty mustard seed. And with that little bit of faith, we can move mountains. So ask God to give you faith. He gives generously and would love to lavish you with his faith. I'll also tell you this. The more you learn about him, the more you won't doubt him. So keep praying and reading the scripture and coming to church and fellowshipping with other believers, and remember that Christ is faithful even when we are weak. I get weak sometimes, and I count on Christ by the power of his Spirit to give me strength. How does Jesus' faithfulness help strengthen your faith?
All right. One last time, our word up is. Yeah. That was a very blob of an answer. Let's try it one more time all together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Good job. Go ahead and take your break. We have a 5-minute break today. Oh, hold on. Let me fix this really quick. There we go. 5-minute break. Did somebody lose? I don't know what this is. It's yours? Is it from your shoe? Oh. All right, we have 1 minute left in our break. 1 minute left. If you have offering, you can go ahead and bring it up here. All right, back to your seats. Our break is just about over. Let me see who's sitting down, who's ready to go. I see that we have found some imposters on our board, and we need to vote them out. All right. Who's back and ready to go? Is it Team Uwu? Is it Team Better Than Uwu? All right. Go ahead and put your Pokemon cards away, please. If you have offering, our offering baskets are going towards the back. Anybody else have offering? Did you get a chance to put offering in the basket? Last call. All right, let's go ahead and